Greetings to our viewers in Kenya and around the world. Welcome to The Headhunter with me, Laban Cliff, coming to you from Coffee C9. Always a great partnership we have with these spaces as well. Already glad that you could actually take time to join us through our television platform and, of course, our digital platforms. Today, we are honored and glad to have none other than Joan Thuo. Well, don't worry, that's a name on the side, but the name you'll get on LinkedIn is Joan, the career coach, or Joan, the winning CV. Why she's very important on this program is that she's actually an influencer on a platform that many of you might find a bit strange, and that's on LinkedIn. I know we've gotten many requests, many responses and feedback to our shows on LinkedIn. So it is an honor and a pleasure to actually get her for this show. And ladies and gentlemen, drum rolls. Joan, thank you so much for creating time for us.
Thank you, Laban.
So it's amazing to just look at your career journey and how you just landed smack into entrepreneurship. And now I'm calling you a LinkedIn influencer. Cannot wait to have your tag there by LinkedIn. I'm sure they're watching. So just take us through, before you actually went into this business, what were you doing before?
All right. So being an entrepreneur or running a business was something, it wasn't part of my plan. I knew I wanted to become a HR director. So the plan in my 30s was to be a HR director because I've always been very passionate about HR. I studied psychology, specialized in industrial psychology, which mainly involves how you apply psychology in the workplace. And it's something that I really loved. And my first, how I started my HR journey was at IBM. So I got an internship. So at this time, they were looking for interns who had a background in psychology. And that's how I started my HR journey. And I was put in the recruitment department. So all this time, in my mind, I'm thinking, like, this is it. Because I really, I enjoyed recruitment. I loved HR. And I knew, the future plan was to become a HR director. So that was the plan. But then, working, I realized so many people were struggling in terms of how they present themselves during interviews. And I got a passion of now helping candidates, structure their documents. And it's actually my sister who pushed me, because then she was working somewhere and she wasn't being paid as much as I knew her worth is. So I helped her, do her CV, coached her for the interview, and she ended up getting a job that was paying her twice as much as what she was getting. And so, I asked myself, if I can do this for her, I can do that for like maybe other people. So it just started like that. And then now the career coaching, the CV writing work became so much that now it became a fully fledged business. But it wasn't really, it was not part of my plan.
So let's face it, you're actually working, but you're still doing something out of passion.
Yes.
And now just transition into it. When did you just make that decision and say, okay, wait a minute, I can actually stop what I'm doing full time and maybe go into entrepreneurship?
All right. So when I left IBM and started a HR consulting firm. So I was doing HR for small, for SMEs, because SMEs wouldn't want to spend a lot of money paying a HR person. So it's easier to outsource the HR work, like, recruitment, setting up the HR structure, etc. So I worked with SMEs for, maybe around 3 years, did a lot of, recruitment and, the HR consulting. I loved it. I'm actually very good at it. But then I think the now working with candidates one-on-one, the coaching, that's the fire in my belly. It's what I can do for free. It's just that I get paid to do it. So the reason why I shifted is because now the work became too much. So I couldn't do both. I felt I didn't have the capacity to do both, so I needed to pick one. But still, so many people, so many organizations reach out for me, especially to give them candidates to do, the recruitment. So I'll probably need to think of how, but for now, I just do the career coaching.
Wow. And then now, of course, jumped into it. You have the career coaching bit. Now there's a winning CV. Is there now the areas of recruitment? You're saying areas of business. You're saying, okay, the recruitment side is actually one of that. What do you realize as perhaps the common mistakes? And this is now maybe drawing from your IBM days and now maybe some that gave you the push factor.
Yeah.
What are some of the common mistakes you actually note when you get some of the CVs sitting on as a recruiter and now as one of the guys to help the candidates get the job?
Oh my, do we have time?
Yes, we do. Go for it. Go for it.
So there are so many people who are very qualified for jobs, but for one reason or the other, they're not able to package themselves well. Maybe because they don't know. So it's partly there are people who just don't know how to package themselves. There are people who assume because I'm a first class honor student, or because I'm very good at what I do, the hiring manager needs to know. So whether or not my CV is good, they should know my worth. Then there are people now, the third category is that I think there are also people who are just ignorant. So you'd have a CV that is shabby, or it's half a page, or 15 pages, or it has grammatical errors, or it's, you've been asked to send your CV, you send a CV without an email body, without a subject, you just, submit, or you send a CV and you've not PDF'd. So it's a number of things, and there are so many people who do not qualify for jobs just because they don't have the right type of CV. The other thing is, so nowadays, we have two types of CVs. There's the modern CV and the ATS CV. So there are organizations that are not going to shortlist you if you don't, if for example, they have the ATS software which would shortlist. So an organization has a software that is going to shortlist your CV before it lands the HR desk.
Let's pause a bit on that, because one would just feel that, hey, I mean, there's actually a human being that's going to look at my CVs.
Right.
Let's look at it on the back end. I mean, there are thousands of CVs that employers receive.
Right.
And you have to make your CV, how do you calling it?
ATS, Applicant Tracking System Compliant. So it's the ATS compliant CV.
So this is really machine-based, or like a whole robotic bit.
Correct.
So there are some specific words that you have to use in your CV so that it picks up and it actually can be shortlisted, for instance.
Correct.
Which never, that's the information that really never gets to the candidates.
Right.
Because people feel like, okay, maybe it's a HR or it's a recruitment manager who's going to go through CVs,
Right.
but he or she has thousands to go through.
Right. So certain organizations are going to have that software. Not all, but it's becoming more and more common. So you need to know, if I'm applying to an organization like maybe UN or MasterCard or IBM or Google or Oracle, they receive thousands of applications. Most definitely they are using the ATS software. So you need to have a CV that is ATS compliant, but you also need to have a CV that is visually attractive for a human being, so that then if Laban, you ask me for your CV, for my CV, the CV I send you is, it needs to be one that is visually attractive, that you'd read and you're like, I need to meet Joan for an interview. And that CV is not the same as the ATS compliant CV, because the ATS compliant CV is going to have the keywords, it's going to be structured in a way that the software is going to pick, but then that CV is not visually attractive. So it's not tailored for a human being.
So do you advise two CVs?
Exactly. But no, the problem with most candidates, they just have one CV. In fact, like this one CV, like they don't even tailor. So the one CV, everywhere, whether they're applying to KTN or to a hospital or to, so if you don't tailor your CV for a particular job, you significantly reduce the chances that you are going to land the job. So we have so many candidates saying, I've sent out 1,000 applications, why am I not getting the job? There are no jobs in Kenya, like you need to know someone. But no, you don't need to know anyone. You just need a good CV. So
you have two CVs. You also make sure that you can actually tailor make to every job that you apply, because I know the conversation might be, you go print out, you are applying for 10 jobs, print out the 10 CVs, and then hand them over to that same job, which is totally different companies, industries as well.
So, like that effort. And I know being a job seeker, it's actually, it can be very depressing almost, because, so many of you, very few jobs. So you actually need to work smart. So sending thousands of applications does not do justice. So you want to first make sure you have the right CV. Tailor the CV. You'd rather apply for 3 jobs, but you've done excellent applications, as opposed to apply for 57,000, but then,
doesn't make sense into it. So let's look at now the solution that you provide. So you have a candidate who's come to you and say, what, Joan, I made a mistake. I mean, I have just one CV. It's all over the place. What are the steps you take them through?
All right. So we provide different services. So there's, the modern CV, the ATS CV, the cover letter writing, the LinkedIn profile writing. And the reason we provide these services is because I know there are people who, they are not able to do a CV, and it's actually okay. The same way I'm not good in math. I cannot balance my books to save my life. I can't.
So one of the key talents you have in your team is a good accountant or a CFO, for
Right,
instance.
like
Yeah.
I mean, I'm horrible in
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah.
So the same way, there are people who cannot put themselves on paper.
Yeah.
But you see, it's something important, because if you're not able to represent yourself well on paper, you're not going to get the job. So paying someone to do your documents is actually a good investment for now and even the future. I remember my very first CV, I actually paid for someone to do it, and like it was done, and it significantly increased the chances that I landed a job.
Yeah.
So CV writing is one of the services that we provide. Then there is now the career coaching, because there are people who now they want to recareer. So they've been a TV host for 10 years, but now
Not mentioning names.
no, but now they've been feeling that this is not it.
Yeah.
Probably, the interests change, skills, abilities, and passions change. Sometimes people want to look for jobs that would give them permission to spend more time at home, especially after COVID.
Yes.
So many people changed jobs. They wanted to spend more time at home. They sat down with themselves and, they were like, wait a minute, what have I been doing for the past 15 years? They want to find work that is more meaningful. So also now we provide that solution for people who are trying to transition. There are people who like now stay-at-home moms. You've been a stay-at-home mom for the past 15 years, and now you're thinking, I need to go back because my kids are all grown up. I took some time to raise the kids, and now I'm ready to go back. Where do I start? There are people who, for one reason or the other, the degree that they did is not in line with what their passion is. We've had stories of so many people doing medicine for their parents. They go take the degree, and now
hand it over back
hand
after
it
7
over.
years in med school.
Right. There are people who are looking for promotions. So you've been stuck. You've stagnated in your career for quite some time, and you want to move. So what do you do? So career coaching is also one of the major services we provide, which I find very important. In fact, it needs to come before the product, before the CV and the LinkedIn, because then if you do not understand the direction in which you want to steer your career, then you're not able to have CVs, LinkedIn profiles, cover letters that are in line with the direction that you want to steer your career.
Okay.
So that needs to come first, so that then you're very clear. I'm recareering, or I'm looking for a promotion, or I'm looking for now, a better job. I'm looking for a job in a different industry. Yeah. And that being said, my CVs, they need to be tailored in a certain particular way.
Okay.
And then, of course, now, the purpose of a CV is to land you a job interview. A CV can never land you a job.
Yeah.
The purpose of the interview is to land you a job offer. So you could have the perfect CV, perfect LinkedIn profile, but then you go for the interview, they ask you, Laban, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Then you have all horror
It's
stories.
over.
I've seen some of that video as well, and I mean, so people first regurgitate what is on the CV, for instance.
Exactly.
People are talking about irrelevant, aspects about themselves that maybe do not impact on the job.
Exactly.
What are some of the other,
Like, you come for the interview, we ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, me, I grew up in Nakuru, in a village called Mango. I have, 3 sisters, and you start giving, background about your family.
Yeah.
Some people will talk about, very personal things, like I lost a relative. Then you see, the reason why you should never talk about any personal thing during an interview is because if something tugs to your emotions and you start crying, now the interview is over, we now shift to the tears, and no, it's not an interview anymore. There are people who are just not, for one reason or the other, the confidence. So their palms are sweating, they just get into an interview and everything just disappears. It happens. Actually, it happens to all of us. Yeah. So they're not able to manage the fear and the anxiety. There are people who would go for an interview and for one reason or the other, they're cocky, they're overconfident. So you'll ask them a question like, so why should we hire you for this job? But you're the ones who advertise.
But you need me.
You need me.
You need me. I'm the best at what I do.
You need my skills. Or we ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. I sent you the CV. You didn't have a time. You didn't get a chance to go through my CV. So just knowing, and especially I think it's the new generation. I think the time, like I grew up, I mean, when you get a chance to go for an interview, oh my goodness, like you are ready, you prepare,
Ready to go. Yeah.
and you're there and you're giving it your
Your very best.
100%. But I
Yeah.
think things have changed.
Yeah.
Even now, when I interview, you know, Gen Z, it's totally different. In fact, I'm the one who's had to adjust because you see, the only people I can hire is Gen Z. So if I do not accommodate, if I do not learn how to work with Gen Z, then I'm in a fix.
Yeah.
So I think also, like many employers have had to adjust. So the way you interview Gen Z, if you come with the expectation of how we used to do interviews before, then you're not going to get any candidates.
We've spoken about the CVs, we've spoken about the interview process, spoken about the organizations. We're taking a quick break. She comes top dollar, so it's an honor to have her on The Headhunter, so stay tuned. Welcome back to The Headhunter with me, Laban Cliff, coming to you from Coffee 9. What are some of the other changing aspects? Not to mention the medium, because, I mean, lots of interviews now on Zoom, for instance.
Yeah.
Talk about the changing aspects on the interviews. And even just presentation. Some people now
Right.
can come in interviews, in jeans, T-shirts,
Yes,
for instance.
and yeah, like
And it's still not deemed badly off, especially if you're
right.
hiring for a techie.
Exactly. Engineers, I mean, they come with hats and t-shirts. As long
Yeah.
as they're able to code and do
Yes.
whatever they do best, that's okay. But as you mentioned now, nowadays we're doing interviews on Zoom. If you cannot share your screen or,
Yeah.
you're not able
Your
to
video, for instance,
video,
your sound, yeah.
your sound, and, like you go for the interview, the background, I'm seeing lotion and
Yes. Oh, goodness.
wardrobe, or you're seated in the dark because
Yeah.
then you're seated in a place where the light is not facing you. These small things, the interview is over. Because then, I mean, like the person on the other side would just ask themselves if they cannot if they cannot work around Zoom, we are done. So that now you are aware about now how like, I think how the world has changed.
Yeah.
Technology is very key. So just this, like, small things that even now during the Zoom interview, you're looking the person in the eye, you're ensuring you have a stable internet, you have, two devices that you can log into. Nowadays, KPLC can do that thing.
Oh, goodness.
And
So
then
it's best to have your mobile phone perhaps
Yeah,
in your laptop
exactly.
just in case.
Yeah, because then now, if KPLC does the thing, how will you
You're
start
off.
explaining how,
Goodness.
oh, I did not charge, or
Yeah.
so it's better just have like a laptop and then backup, just have a phone, have Wi-Fi and backup, have bundles that you can
Bundles,
use.
yeah.
Test with a friend,
Yeah.
like Skype a friend, or Zoom, do Zoom with a friend, just to make sure that where you're seated, they can see you. Even you go for the interview more confident. But there are so many people, excellent candidates, and I see it all the time before I do an interview prep. Excellent candidates, but they just don't know how to operate Zoom.
Which is quite challenging because it's the same Zoom or Google Hangouts or any other video platform that you can actually choose to use. It's the same platforms they're going to use in their work. So
Right.
even through the interview process on how they operate Zoom, that will also impact on how they are going to work or how they're going to use technology in their day-to-day business.
Right, but you see, pre-COVID, it was neither
Not
here
a-
nor there.
yes.
Now I mean, if you cannot operate,
Yeah.
we are not having that conversation because also there's so many jobs now that are remote. And you see, small things like, because that's a communication problem. Are you a good communicator, orally, written? Can you hold a meeting remote? Can you lead a team? Those small things, which are some people would not think they are important, but they're actually very important over and above the technical skills. You can actually get her just because you are able to maneuver these things, like the Zoom and the IT and all these things. But there are still people who are stuck pre-COVID days. You don't want to use social media, you don't want to use Zoom, you don't want to be good in these things. And they're actually not so complicated if you think about it. But there are people who remain stuck and they're not able to unstuck themselves. And unfortunately, the world has gone and gone. You know, I think COVID almost catapulted us to the future. Yeah.
And I like that you say pre-COVID and now post-COVID.
Yeah.
What are some of the emerging trends, apart from now of course, now changing? You mentioned about remote work as
Yeah.
well. What are some of the emerging trends you're seeing in the job market?
Right.
Not necessarily now with the candidates, but particularly in the job market and with employers.
Right. So, that the remote work, number one, so that then we are having more and more people doing more than one job. In fact, if there's anything COVID taught people, it's almost criminal to bank on one thing, because people lost jobs. I mean, or people were fired, and you know, people who probably worked in an organization for years. So they went like, oh, so you mean one thing can happen and I don't have a job anymore. So people are very skeptical about just having one source of income, because then there are people who went back to, to their home. There are people who now, post-COVID, the skills they thought they had are not so marketable. There are those who thought their skills were not so marketable, like now digital marketing or anything digital media. And now after COVID, I mean, they're like, oh, I can actually make money just like shooting videos, just like doing X, Y, Z. So a lot has changed. Engineering, for example, engineering jobs, like those remote jobs, they were, very marketable before COVID, but now it's actually like times 50.
Wow.
Any sales, business development jobs, definitely, they're still up there.
Where are we seeing where are we seeing the demand? Like
IT engineering.
IT, okay.
IT engineering. And then now, because everything went online, so platforms like Zoom and Teams and, things like even like co-shared workspace, for example, virtual assistant. So like nowadays, it's virtual everything. You can have a virtual assistant, a virtual accountant, a virtual social media person. Then now, because things like social media marketing, that now a platform like TikTok is where you can market anything, and it has the most number of people. So that then we are moving in times where having a 4-year degree is not necessarily what is going to land you a job, as opposed to knowing where the need is and getting a certification that's around that need. And I think also after COVID, so many people are no longer doing a 4-year degree.
Top 10 or now this is why, because you might be tempted to mention IBM, but out of preference, because you've worked there, and it's an amazing experience working in the multinational. But what are some of the employers you're actually seeing, and I think this is just across board, that many interviewees are endearing themselves to? Let's talk about just Kenya, maybe in East Africa.
Okay, so like I think we have a good number of very good employers. Top of my mind would be Vivo.
Yeah.
Is an excellent employer.
Yeah.
But like we have, I think it also depends on what your need is, your needs, your skills, and does this organization provide the environment that I need to thrive?
Okay.
Because now, like an organization like Safaricom, for example, they'd have they'd accommodate mothers who are breastfeeding and so there's that work life if you're a mom, but then maybe for someone else it might not be ideal. So like the Vivos, the Safaricoms, the MasterCard foundations, IBM, definitely. I mean, I would recommend IBM.
Definitely.
But
as an alumni.
yeah. So I think it depends on what are your strengths, your skills, what kind of environment are you looking at, because also now the leadership, the person you work under significantly contributes to your job satisfaction. People leave bosses, they don't leave organizations.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So so that then you might rather go into an organization that's not so big, but then the person you're working under, they are amazing. So I think it really depends.
Depends on that. So what we can see then, what makes a good employer is number one, the assignment leader or the boss you're working under. You're looking at the benefits. Notice you not even mentioned about salaries. So
Yeah, for me,
salaries. Do you think Gen Zs especially are motivated by
no, they are.
the cash?
They are. But you
Yeah.
see, I'm a strong believer of if you know what your strengths, your skills, your passions, and your value is, the money is going to come. Don't worry.
Yeah.
The money is going to come. And you're going to look for the organizations that are going to be able to afford you. So money should be the last thing you're thinking about. Think about all these other things. But then the mistake we make is you're thinking about the money first. So you're being paid so much money, but then you've gone and worked under someone you cannot stand. You end up getting sick. You end up not being satisfied in your job, being a mediocre person, and you end up exiting. So that you're thinking about your growth, you're thinking about the environment you're going into. Is it a healthy environment? Is it a toxic environment? There are many people who would rather earn so much but then be in a toxic work environment. But then if you're able to think about these things and then even now say, this organization probably a very healthy environment. I'm working with a very amazing team. Maybe it's going to pay me 50,000 less, but it's okay because then,
I'll go for it.
yeah. What title also are you going for? Like, what is your career map like? Does this job position you for that? Like for the direction that you want to steer your career. So all these things need to come into play.
True. Joan, hang in there. So to all our viewers, thank you so much for having created time for us as well. We hope you grabbed something for yourself in your next, CV update. And of course, to reach out to Joan, the winning CV on LinkedIn for more details on how you can just make sure you get ahead. This has been The Headhunter with me, Laban Cliff, coming to you from Coffee C9. See you again next time. It's goodbye from me.